My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review for Horizon Zero Dawn. This is a game that I was looking forward to playing because I heard so many amazing things about it. And let's begin with what I did like. And I know it's so easy to say this about so many games that come out nowadays, but it should be stated here because it's true. And that's that the graphics in this game are absolutely incredible. Like, lots of people clearly put time and effort into them, and it shows. Because visually, this game is quite remarkable. The landscapes, the water, the sunlight, and the way it looks in moments, absolutely gorgeous. But that's where my positives end. I did not enjoy this game at all. In fact, it's probably the most overrated game I've ever played. Let's talk about the gameplay. I hated it. I did not find this game to be fun at all. I spent weeks playing it, and considering that this game is like 95% traveling to places, that's a lot of time to spend traveling to places. And it gets old really fast. Really fast. Whenever I finished a mission and I saw that my next location was thousands of miles away, I actually started to get mad after a certain point. Like, the first few times I'm like, okay, it's some traveling. And then when it keeps happening time and time again, I'm just like, are you kidding me? One thing I do love about this game is that there's no out of bounds. So when you're walking through a village, you can be jumping on the tables that people are eating at. You can jump over the railings and jump off cliffs. And I like that. It makes walking around feel a lot more free. But when you have to get to a location and there's no direct path and you can jump literally anywhere, it made me very angry because it'll tell you to go one way where there's a big mountain in the way, and because you can climb the mountain, I figured you're supposed to get to that location by climbing the mountain. And then you start climbing the mountain and you realize that you can't get to the location through it, so then you have to find a way down, and then you realize that you have to go all the way around it. So you already spent all that time doing that, but now that you have to go all the way around it, it adds like a few extra thousand miles, making the journey all the longer and all the more repetitive and redundant, and it just wasn't fun at all. And it really pissed me off too, because sometimes you go climbing the mountain and then it tells you, oh, stop now or go back or you'll be restarted from the previous checkpoint. And then you can take one more step and bam, you're back at the previous checkpoint. And you're just like, wait, what? Because so much of this game is traveling, I was so set on always saving at a checkpoint. Not because the game was difficult and I didn't want to restart a certain section again, but because I didn't want to have to travel 2,000 miles again. So when you're climbing a mountain and it restarts you from the previous checkpoint that was thousands of miles back and you have to spend another half hour getting to that location, it's not fun. In fact, it really pissed me off. Like, there should have been more save points whenever you're traveling. And, like, why doesn't this game have autosave? Like, it came out in 2017. Autosave has been a main feature for the past decade. And there's a good reason why it's used as often as it is. Because otherwise, you're just left frustrated. And that's what this game left me lots of the time. Also, like I said, it's just unclear which path you're supposed to use to get to certain locations, which can just drive you mad time and time again. But like, there's one area right before the end of the game where you're supposed to rest before the big final battle. And like, it's just impossible to navigate where you're supposed to go. There's also all these different tags at moments, and you're just like, okay, which tag am I supposed to follow? Because there's a few different yellow ones here, and it was just really, really frustrating. And even though I praised the graphics earlier, and I really do mean everything I said, but this game is so visually boring to look at. And it's because your eyes are in the jungle, the snowy area, or the desert. And whenever you're in one of those areas, it all looks the same. When you're in the desert, and there's a stream of water, and there's just sand and dirt on both sides of it, when you're traveling through it to get to a location, it just feels like you're going back to the exact same area because it all looks the same. It's very flat, uninteresting, and just repetitive visuals. So considering that free roaming takes up so much of this game and I hated it as much as I did, that's not a good sign at all. Like, at an eventual point, you can even start to take control of these animals and ride them, and I thought, okay, this is going to be a much faster way to get from one area to the next. But no, these animals were the slowest moving animals ever, and you might as well just walk at that point because it's faster to do it that way. And the fighting combat just isn't fun. Whenever you're fighting enemies or warbots, it's so repetitive and it's never fun. You can only really do a few moves. You can shoot your weapon, you can hit them, or you can dodge. And that's it. There's not enough variety within the controls. And the bow and arrow it isn't fun to use. It's just the most standard weapon. Like when you play Last of Us Part 2, and I know I can't compare every game to it, when you fire that bow and arrow, it's just the best feeling weapon to use. And here, it just feels like a generic thing. It could have been a gun, could have been any weapon. I do like the climbing aspect of this game. It did kind of feel like Uncharted in those moments, but you do it so infrequently that sometimes it's impossible to tell when you're supposed to climb. Like there's this one area where I was just stuck in for a while and I didn't realize that you could climb the pipe sail. So even though that's one aspect of the game I did enjoy, they still found a way to make it frustrating. There's also these portions that you can create and collect, and at first I'm like, okay, what do these do? And maybe it's just me. Maybe I missed something huge. But whenever I tried to use them, they all just gave me health. And I'm just like, wait, really? And if I missed something, then they should have made it more clear, but these potions just added nothing to the game. Like, I almost never used them. Also, I find this game to be so frustratingly difficult in moments. Like, there's this one moment where you have to fight 2 corruptors, and it's just impossibly hard. Like, I like my games with a fair amount of difficulty, but when it gets to the point where you can't beat it no matter how hard you try, it stops being fun and it becomes more frustrating. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I had to lower my difficulty because I could not get past this section. Like, you're trying to save this guy, what's his name? Odin or something like that? And there were these 2 corruptors, and I was stuck on it for a frustrating long time. So, I got zero enjoyment from that. But let's talk about the story and the world building, because this is one aspect of the game that lots of people really do praise, and I hated it. Now, to be fair, I didn't know much about this game when I started it. Like, I knew it was set during the primal times. I know you would have to hunt animals. So, when the game begins and there are like this 5 elements, water, earth, fire, air, and steel, I'm just like, wait, hold on a second. And then I saw that all these animals are actually robot animals. I'm not gonna lie, my anticipation to play this game dropped this much like that. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is stupid. Like, it feels like an idea that a second grader would have. Like, oh, I've got this robot elephant, and it's just stupid. I hated that aspect of the game, and that is like the main central point of this game. I didn't really care for the world building at all either. Whether it's the steel animals, the tribes, the proving, all that stuff didn't work for me. It all felt generic. It felt like they had a formula already laid out before they started creating this game, and they're like, okay, we need some generic tribes, we need these generic side characters. And it all felt generic. It didn't add anything new to the medium of video games. And I just didn't care for any of it at all. And then you got the main character, Aloy, who I really didn't like as a character. She is one of the most uninteresting video game characters I've ever played as. I'm going to go ahead and use the term, but she is indeed a Mary Sue. What's a Mary Sue, you may ask? It's a term that started to become popular back in 2015 when The Force Awakens came out, because people called Rey a Mary Sue. And what it is, it's pretty much this perfect character who can do anything that the script requires them to do without any struggles or flaws, and they're just perfect at everything. And that's not interesting character writing. Anything that they need her to do in the story, she succeeds. Everyone loves her eventually pretty fast. She can do anything that the script needs her to. And we never see her struggle or anything. And I never cared for her. I just thought this was the most boring character to carry this game. And the side characters are just the very definition of generic. None of them stood out. The villains lack any bit of presence. I kept forgetting they even existed. There was a real lack of a consistent villain from beginning to end. Like, when the end of the game comes and you've got the boss fight that you're supposed to fight, I'm just like, who is this guy again? When was he in this game prior? Because they all kind of just looked alike, and there was nothing about them that really stood out. You've got this one character, Silence, who never felt like an actual character. It just feels like he was there so Aloy could have someone to talk to every now and again when she's traveling. Erend is a remarkably dark character, and there's this side quest of his that comes up before the big finale that just shows how terribly written he is. And I hate it when games give you choices on what to say. I know it just comes with the territory of free roaming open world games, but I hate it. I always have, because the characters in those moments don't feel like characters, they just feel like robots. It just feels like, oh, you can say this or what, like, and none of it has any weight. You know, that's why I prefer linear narrative games, because every line of dialogue can have some sort of importance. And that's not the case with these ones. The story to this game is, yeah, it's really bad. I hated it. Like, to think about how you go from the beginning of this game to the end, it's just such a messy path that's really unclear. Like, from the main character Aloy trying to prove herself at this event called The Proving, to her stopping this robot apocalypse. Like, what's the chain of events that led from this to this? Because there's not really much there. It all just feels really random, and just most of this story relies on exposition. Like this, that, when you're not traveling to another location or whatever, then you're experiencing some exposition. This game is just exposition overload the game, and they just use holograms to do so. And there's just some things that the characters learn that you're just like, wait, you really didn't know that? It just makes the characters seem really stupid. The post-apocalypse angle is completely absent. I know it's a big part of this game that the world's already been destroyed and this is us starting over from scratch. And in concept, that's an interesting idea, but you never get that sense because so many of the landscapes are completely flat and boring, like I already said. But like, there's no buildings, there's no proof that there was human civilization that ever existed. You know, when you're playing Last of Us and you're traveling throughout all these abandoned cities that have overgrown plants on them, that are covered in mold, and you just get the sense that people used to live here at a point in time. You just don't feel like that with this game. This game is a pacing nightmare. It's just a mess. You never know what's actually essential to the story or what's just a side quest. Like I said, there's a side quest that comes in just before the big finale, which just puts the pacing to a complete halt. And there's also this thing you can use that's, I guess, kind of has a purpose in the narrative called the focus. It's like this thing she wears around her ears that allow her to see certain things. And I never cared for the focus. I don't think it added anything to the game at all. It just felt like a generic tool that you might use in some moments, but not nearly enough as often as you'd think. Also, one last negative I want to say is that there's this side mission of this girl who needs help, and this is within the very beginning of this game, because whenever you walk past this certain walk, you can hear this character screaming, and then it appears on the screen that you can save this girl. So I climbed up the walk and I'm just like, where's this girl? And I can never find her. So anytime I walk past that walk and I heard that scream, it just pissed me off. But yeah, I know lots of people love this game. I hated it. This might be one of the worst games I've ever played. Either this game or Heavy Rain. Like, in terms of the narrative and the characters and all that, this game is abysmal. The writing is awful. There were no characters I cared for. There was no interesting world building that really stood out. This game is just a bunch of random events mishmashed together with just some of the dumbest lore. Like I said, the robot animal things just did nothing for me. I thought it was the stupidest stuff ever. Then you've also got some of the least fun gameplay. Fighting enemies was never fun. Traveling from one location to the next was infuriating. And there's just no reason for me to ever play this game again. I'm not going to play Horizon Forbidden West ever, because I hated this game so much. It's terribly written, it's never fun. It was one of those games that I'm just like, why am I even playing this? And it was tough for me to get through it. I did not have a good time whatsoever. So I'm going to go ahead and give Horizon Zero Dawn a 1.5 out of 10. Okay, have you played Horizon Zero Dawn? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin, out.